All right, so we're going to do this episode a little differently. I'm going to talk about some pro wrestling. I'm really just going to talk about just some of my basic concerns and just things I've seen in recent weeks and as we inch towards SummerSlam. Just something I wanted to bring up. I hate how there's a binary choice as a fan these days, especially when you talk about wrestling and share your comments about wrestling. Um, and this episode was inspired by Stevie Richards, by the way. I just want to give a shout out to him. I might post this on Twitter to his account just to say thanks, but I really appreciate his work and the analysis that he's provided on his show about wrestling. Just as a side, I've been watching wrestling for many years. I think I started watching probably like the mid '90s. So I mean, I've been a lifelong fan. I'm almost 40 years old, so I've been watching for a long time, and I really do appreciate. I've watched a lot of interviews, watched a lot of wrestling, but I've never been a wrestler. I mean, I've done some MMA, very lightly at a dungeon. I didn't actually, I trained, but I never took any fights or anything. And I played football through high school. So I mean, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a wrestler. I'm not a fighter. Never worked in the wrestling business. So these are just my opinions based on my years of experience and the fact that I have a big mouth and a lot to think and a lot to say. Um, that being said, I really appreciate his analysis. I think some of the other guys who analyze wrestling, they sound like they're still in character and they're still trying to work over the fans. And some of them sound like maybe they were good wrestlers, but they don't sound very bright. And Stevie Richards sounds like an analyst. If I didn't know it was wrestling, if I just let him talk, he could be talking about stocks, bonds. He could be talking about reviewing the financials of a company. I mean, just listening to him talk about the expenses for AEW, listening to his amazing analysis, which I recommend everybody do. Watch the episode that he does about the roster, where he takes the time to break down how he would create base rosters for all the shows, his reasoning behind it. It's really excellent high level work. And there's a lot of guys in this podcast game who are out there talking wrestling, and even a lot of former wrestlers who are talking. And I gotta say, like their takes are, I don't know, they're subpar. They do remind me that some people should just stick to what they're good at, which might be getting hit in the head with a chair. Stevie Richards is not one of those guys. He was never a WWF champion or anything like that. But as he would point out, don't get fooled by the position somebody had in wrestling. Okay, just because somebody wasn't told, hey, the guy's going to lay down for you, and in fact, he was told he had to lay down for people, doesn't mean he can't fight, and it certainly doesn't mean he doesn't understand wrestling. So I just want to say that he kind of inspired me to talk about this. But again, this is my opinion, not an opinion of somebody who's been in the business. Just someone who's watched it for 20 plus years. Um, More than that at this point, about 30 years. So anyway, with that said, I just want to say I'm really tired of the binary choice and the zero sum game that's played, where if you say something positive about WWE, you're automatically, anti AEW. If you say something positive about AEW, then you're automatically anti WWE. Or if you say something about the individuals involved. I think bad people can do good things, good people can do bad things, and there's a lot of shades of gray when it comes to actions and the content of people's character. So it's very intellectually lazy to label things one way or the other, and usually it's inaccurate. So that being said, I just want to say that I think that there are the AEW, they've talked in the years past, and Tony Khan mentioned about not making some of the mistakes about WCW made and whatever. The reality is, I don't necessarily think that AEW is making the mistakes that WCW made. Frankly, I liked WCW right to the day it closed, and shout out to Eric Bischoff and company. I really did. I enjoyed it. Yes, there were things. Everybody can complain about everything. There's always something about Raw, SmackDown, Nitro, Thunder, whatever, Saturday night, I could complain about. But overall, I enjoyed WCW, and I go back and I watch episodes because I just thought it was good. And over the years, since it's closed and since we lost ECW, I think there's been a growing appreciation for the product overall, especially the amount of talent that they had. It was a big roster, very talented roster. Would it have been used differently? I would have loved to seen Eric Bischoff's version of WCW post Turner ownership. I would have loved to see the Big Bang and see what they could have done, being based out of Vegas. I think there could have been a lot of potential for some great things there, but we'll never know. That being said, um, I don't think AEW is making the same mistakes, or make if you want to call it mistakes. I think they're taking their own path, but there are mistakes along the way that they are making that somebody should point out to them. And it's not being disrespectful to Tony Khan, who seems like a very nice guy, but there are some things that he doesn't know. And sometimes being great in business is knowing how to hire people around you who are very good at their job and empowering them and listening and being honest. That's why people pay analysts. I mean, I've worked in financial services and I went to business school. I'm not saying I'm an expert in anything, but one thing you do learn it just from working over years and years, and I have been in the working world for about 15 years, and I've also obviously, like I said, I went to business school, and one of the things that I learned in my time is that a lot of times great managers are just very good at sourcing. They're good at sourcing talent. They're good at sourcing people and knowing how to put them in positions to succeed, listening, and then taking into account what they're saying and putting something together. And I don't know if that's Tony Khan's strong suit at all times. Not saying that he's doing a bad job in terms of, well, the company hasn't had any success. No, that's not fair. They have had some success, okay? First of all, they have a lot of money. That's something that, credit to his father. But the company has gotten themselves on television. They have accumulated talent, and they have their own little history now. But to be fair, I think the peak of the company was a couple of years ago. For my money, when John Moxley showed up and had a rivalry with Kenny Omega, I thought that was peak AEW. I thought at that point in time, week in and week out, I felt like I could not miss one episode of Dynamite. I thought it was must see TV. I thought that the wrestling quality was still fine, but I thought from a story perspective there were stories going on and there was interesting developments with people who were showing up, that it was turning into like a fantasy WWE hybrid with AEW, and I thought it was fun. I thought it was like, hey, we're going to put a light on indie talent that you don't know, or guys from New Japan and Ring of Honor that you don't know, but we're also going to feature some guys from WWE who need a fresh start, and I thought it was cool. Um, I would say in the past, and also credit to them through the pandemic. I thought they did a great job staying in business, producing shows at Daly's Place, where they maintained the level of excitement that could have been wiped out by COVID. That being said, it's been rough, in recent months, years. Basically, since CM Punk left, I think things have really gone downhill. They were going downhill when he arrived because of clearly there were some problems backstage, as we all know, but things really got bad after he left. And Cody leaving probably triggered the beginning of the downfall, but and the numbers kind of reflect that. They haven't been able to touch a million viewers in a long time. They've been struggling, and it's not because they don't have talent or anything. And it's really to me, it's because of a couple of things. Number one, there doesn't seem to be anybody backstage that's willing to tell them. And this is speaking as a fan. There's nobody who's willing to tell the wrestlers in AEW slow down. There's nobody. And the pace of the wrestling matches are reflected by the pace of the culture. For example, Will Ospreay and MJF had a match last week that opened up Dynamite. That would have been the main event of any pay-per-view AEW's ever had. And it would have been seen by a lot of people had they if they would put their main events on at a reasonable hour. Okay, so instead of having 15 matches at a pay per view, maybe you just do like 6 matches. But anyway, They had a match that would be the main event of any match, any pay per view they've ever had in AEW. But they put it on regular television and they did it first thing. Now, people critique WCW for Goldberg beating Hulk Hogan on an episode of Nitro in the Georgia Dome, but at least that was the main event. Okay, I mean there was like some purpose behind that. What's the purpose behind what they're doing now? What they're doing now is they're just, you know, they just threw on what was their best match. Um, one of their best matches that they probably ever had, and they just threw it on the opening match of an event. Why? That should have been saved. And here's the problem. We're going to do another match at All Out or All In. Another issue that just blows my mind that you would have they have two pay-per-views in the course of 2 weeks that have the same name, basically. I mean, are you guys stupid or what? Why would you do that? Separate the two. Call them something different. Come on. Anyway, they're going to do another match. There's no way, and you can write this down right now, July 25th, 2024, at 5:19 p.m., Corner Arcade, quote, there is no way that AEW will top the match that they just had, okay, on Dynamite last week at this upcoming pay-per-view. There's no chance. They did everything in MJF's playbook. Now, Will Ospreay's the high flyer, but he can work a regular match, kind of like Seth Rollins. And MJF is more of a Dean Malenko type. I mean, MJF is basically a tall Dean Malenko. He's very technically savvy. Um, he's much better on the mic, obviously, than Malenko. I'm not trying to say that. He's like if you took Jericho and Malenko and mushed them together. You kind of have MJF, right? In terms of Jericho's character development, his ability to work the mic, his ability to be beloved and be hated at the same time. And then you combine it with the way that Dean Malenko wrestled. Malenko was not a high flyer. He was a smaller guy, but he was technically sound. I don't think MJF is like Benoit. Benoit was much better in the ring than MJF. But in terms of that group, that's really the guy that he reminds me. It reminds me of a bigger Dean Malenko with Jericho's mic skills. And MJF, there's nothing in his bag of tricks that's going to be better at this next match than what the match was he just had. MJF is the number one star in AEW. And a perfect example of what's wrong with AEW is MJF is not a high flyer. He is not a flippy floppy guy. So his strength is not going to be the match itself. His strength is going to be the characters, the segment, all of the peripheral stuff around the match. So that when he hits somebody, he has equity in his punch, he has equity in his kick, he has equity when he cheats. It means something. So when you are booking your show and your company around your number one star in this case is a guy who is very good in the ring, but he's not uh, a guy who's going to woo you with one single move. It's the combination, it's the compilation of his voice, his mannerisms, the story behind everything, and then the action in the ring. Well, you just blew off all of the ringside stuff in the first match with Will Ospreay. There's nothing left. So if you do another match, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with having another match. It's great. I don't know if it was Eric Bischoff or I forget who I heard say this over the past week. It's not. It's a great thing to have a second match. The problem is, and now I'm speaking for myself. The problem is you had the main event already. Now it's going to look like seconds. So you started the meal with the prime rib, and now you're having mashed potatoes. Doesn't mean the mashed potatoes aren't good, but that's not the main event. It's not your main course. It's a side. No disrespect to mashed potatoes. That's a huge problem. And again, if I were to book it, and I don't want to get into like all the fantasy booking, but I'll just say this. I believe that if it was a different wrestling company, They would have had the two of them have a match, perhaps, or have a lot of large physical altercation. But it would have led to a match, and then maybe at the All Out pay per view or All In. Again, I don't even know which one it is because it's basically around the same time with the same name. Do a cage match. Do a table match. Do a bull rope match. Do something that's even more extreme. And this way, you go to Max and you say, "Hey, Max, after this first match that you guys had, which the crowd loved because they love the two of you and you guys are good at what you do, we're going to up the ante. You're going to have to do something or do things over the course of the next month and a half to make Will Ospreay so angry that there has to be another match, and that second match is going to be more extreme than the first match." And when you think about it, that's more logical in terms of real life versus what AEW typically likes to do, where they give you the heavy thing first, and then the second thing doesn't matter because they're so focused on matches and wrestling and doing flippy flop moves than they are with the actual art and story of the wrestling. For example, if you are getting into an argument with somebody, you're probably not starting off with hitting them with a bat. You're probably starting off with words. It escalates over time. Let them escalate the action. Let's start with a confrontation. Let's build up to a match. And then if that first match doesn't resolve the rivalry or it gives one of the competitors a reason to be even angrier, then you turn around and you do another match. And guess what happens? The second match could be the heavy hitter. Maybe the second match would be I don't know, the Iron Man match? Because you just had an Iron Man match on TV. But now you can't do that. You can't go from an Iron Man match, which is what you basically just did. You can't go from that to, I don't know, a cage match because Iron Man matches are more rare. You can't go from an Iron Man match to a hardcore match because Iron Man matches are more rare. So you just did the heavier thing first. And again, I give credit to Tony Khan for wanting to give bang for your buck. He loves wrestling. I love the fact that it's a company that loves wrestling and they believe in their minds that they are giving you the best possible wrestling show. And I want to give them credit for that. But what I think they are missing out on is a chance to put it all together in a way that would draw a bigger audience. Hey man, Will Ospreay and MJF just confronted each other and they had a great match. But guess what? Don't worry, they're gonna do another one, and this time it's gonna be an Iron Man match. Really? All right, bro, I'll check that out. Oh, it's gonna be a cage match. It's a ladder match, Hell in a Cell or whatever. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, let's check that out. Now it's like, hey man, Will Ospreay and MJF just had a match on Dynamite. You know, the Dynamite that doesn't draw a huge rating anymore, or the Dynamite that's down a little bit in the ratings. Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, you should check out the highlights. Oh cool, they're gonna do another match. Oh yeah, probably. Really? What's it gonna be? I don't know. It's not gonna be another hour. Promise you that. They don't have an hour to give away at All Out. They don't have an hour to give away at all in now. Because they're going to do 35 matches. So again, I don't want to sound negative about AEW and what they're trying to do, but I think Tony should just take a step back and think about it. You gave away the house when you didn't have to. And it's not because it's not good that you want to give quality, but it's that you kind of disrupted the story. It's like starting off the movie by solving the whole mystery of the movie, and then you want people to come back and watch the rest of the movie. And it's like, I don't really care for the investigative part if I know the ending. I only care if I don't know the ending. Now, I just want to throw something out there about WWE. I've been seeing some stuff where people complain about Bobby Lashley potentially leaving. From what I was reading on a couple of different sites and whatnot, and seeing tweets about Bobby Lashley is being given another. He was given another contract, but he didn't want to sign it. And I think the rumors are that he and MVP perhaps would unite with Shelton Benjamin and make a pitch to AEW to reunite the Hurt Business and AEW. Well, a couple things about that. Number one, if they don't want to sign their contracts, there's nothing WWE can do. I don't know what the contract is, but I'm sure they offered him a good amount of money. But if he doesn't want to sign there, well, it's nothing you can do. Now, if he feels slighted that he's not really been a huge part of this revival and he feels like he would rather take his shot in AEW, well, he left the company before. He could always come back. And Triple H, knowing him, he probably would welcome him back when he had something for him. I don't think they have a lot for the Hurt Business right now. I also think they're a little overloaded with with um with their talent roster because it's big and they have a lot of factions. One thing I would say, perhaps it would be good for them if they did ever do a Hurt Business, include some very young guys from NXT, some very new guys from NXT, because most of the other factions in WWE include people who are not household names to the WWE fan who are now becoming regulars, i.e., JD McDonough in the Judgment Day. The fans now recognize and are used to him. When he first came up, nobody knew who he was. Even though he was in NXT, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Look at how they've been able to get Gunther and his boy Ludwig Kaiser. The fans kind of recognize Kaiser now, right? He was nothing before. LWO. It's basically half of them were NXT people. Legata del Phasma or whatever. Same thing. NXT people mixed in. What else? Who was the other one? The Final Testament. Again, NXT people mixed in. Trying to think. I'm forgetting. Well, the Bloodline, obviously, NXT people mixed in there too. Every faction in WWE, both men and women, has been a combination. And Chad Gable's new faction, right? Same thing. NXT people. So what they've done is they take a WWE established name and they mush them together with an NXT person. The uh the Hurt Business, and again, I'm not making excuses because I like the Hurt Business. I was very annoyed when they got rid of them. But I still think that one of the things that would hold them back from creating something today is they can't do it with that roster. One, Shelton Benjamin's not in the company now, which I also think is kind of a waste because that's a guy you could put him in NXT, you could work with the young guys, I think he'd be great. But the NXT, WWE's, plan, their development plan is pretty clear. They mix the young guys in with the new guys or with the veterans, and then obviously then you spread them out, and that's been the methodology for a long time. If you look at DX, okay, Hunter really blew up under Shawn. Same thing with China under Shawn, and then Triple H and China helped to get X Pac and the New Age Outlaws even more over, even though the Outlaws were super hot. And then the same thing with the Nation of Domination. I mean, they basically, if you look at that group, Tama, the Godfather, they got him over in a big way. They D'Lo Brown to a lesser extent. The Rock, they blew him up in that faction. He became a huge star, and then eventually Mark Henry became a huge star. He went to Sexual Chocolate, and then went away for a little while to do more powerlifting. But when he came back, they made him into a star. So if you think about the success Ron Simmons had giving the rub to those guys, it's the same thing. I mean, most factions are there to serve a purpose of getting people over who you don't know, right? Making the fans recognize them. And the Hurt Business, I know they had Cedric Alexander, but Cedric was never over with the crowd. I mean, they need to get a younger guy. I mean, whether it's a Trick Williams or Carmelo Hayes, or it doesn't have to be a black guy. It could be a white wrestler. It could be someone who's just struggling in NXT or who they believe in. It doesn't matter as long as it's somebody who does not get the recognition from the fans, who the Hurt Business could sell to the office as, we'll get this guy in a prominent position. So anyway, WWE did offer a contract. Supposedly, Bobby just hasn't signed it. Looks like it's 50-50. Maybe he's going to leave, maybe he's not. Be interesting to see if Tony would be willing to spend the money, um, on a hurt business. I don't know. Traditionally, done a very poor job booking guys who are bigger. He tends to put the young or the smaller guys over all the time, and the bigger guys tend to be background figures who always end up jobbing out and losing to smaller guys, rarely getting a push. Similar like Wardlow. Wardlow was becoming a budding star for them, and they just threw him in the garbage. Brian Cage, they've never used him properly. It's a great place for the medium-sized guy and the small guy, and there's a lot of great talent there, and I love that. But, he's not good with big guys. And I have a bad feeling that, Bobby Lashley, these guys, yeah, they come in hot in the beginning, but then they'll end up getting squashed by the Young Bucks or somebody small. And then they'll be on Rampage or, one of these other shows. That's why that's with Stevie Richards. His analysis was so intelligent, the way he broke down these shows and how you could really squeeze the most amount of life and equity out of them. I completely agree with him. Make Rampage a hardcore show, and then this way it separates it from the other two. Like making it's on late at night anyway. It starts at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock on a Friday night? Why should it look or feel like anything we already have? Let's take Rampage on a Friday night at 10 p.m. and let's turn it into the hardcore wrestling show that the fans have been missing out on. Make it ECW, basically. I want to see like barbed wire in the entrance, blood, all that stuff. Cursing. Why not? 10:45 at night on a Friday night? It shouldn't be anything like Dynamite. It shouldn't be anything like Collision. And then what I would do is I would make Collision a pure wrestling show. What is a pure wrestling show? I mean, make Collision feel like make Collision feel like the place where guys go just to have good matches. And then Dynamite can be the place where you put the two together and you have some hardcore, you have stories, and you have good matches. So you change the vibe of those shows. But I will say this, not that everything has to be binary, but the WWE, the better it's gotten, the less interest I have in AEW. Not because I don't like AEW. I like all wrestling. I really want the NWA and TNA and AEW to do well. But the problem is, I have a full-time job. I have kids. I have a life. I can't sit and watch a ton of wrestling all the time. Even when I say, "Oh, I'll catch up," it's hit or miss whether I have time to do that. So what ends up happening is with WWE being so hot, I choose to get WWE in. Maybe I'll watch a little less baseball on those days, or I'll just play a little less video games on those days, whatever. And AEW just goes by the wayside. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of fans. I think the true AEW number for Dynamite is probably that 650, 700,000 at most number, right? I think that's probably it. Maybe a little less. And then when fans who are on the fence tune in, that's how they get that 780, 790, right? I think that's the difference. I just believe that there's not enough room in the AW Kofer to have 950 a million fans as long as WWE is hot, because most people, not everybody is some 20-year-old who lives in their mom's basement. That stereotype is nonsense. Like, of course there are young people who don't have a job or who are struggling economically, or maybe they're saving money, whatever. But for the most part, you have a lot of people out there who do have a life, and they can't just watch wrestling. And if you're AW, you're asking the fans to commit to 5 hours of television a week. 2 hours of Dynamite, an hour of Rampage, and 2 hours of Collision, and that's before pay-per-view, not including Ring of Honor. Now, and that's not even including the YouTube shows that they have, which I never watch. Although maybe once in a while I should check them out, because there's probably some random action on there that I would appreciate, and they're not even trying to tell a story. That's probably where all the wrestlers I like are getting their wins, by the way. Because I'll see a guy like Tony Nese, and the announcers are like, Tony Nese has 38 victories. And I've never seen Tony Nese win a match. Dionys's face is planted in the floor all the time. That guy is legs up in the air like a pregnant woman in a hospital. This guy is never winning a match. But he's apparently got all these wins, so it must be on YouTube. So that's the commitment they want. WWE, same thing. They want 3 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Friday. That's five. 2 hours on Tuesday. So that's 7 hours right there. That's another couple minutes on Twitter for their new show. And then of course they still have PLEs, right? Sometimes for both NXT and WWE. So they're asking for a huge commitment. Do you have enough time in the week to watch that kind of television? Especially if you've got kids, whatever. No. So anyway, this ended up being a lot more about AEW than WWE. I do want to say that WWE has been very hot. I've enjoyed it. And one thing I've been doing is I've been watching the PLEs with some friends of mine who have gotten sucked back into wrestling basically since I started bragging about what I was seeing with Triple H taking over. So I would consider some of these guys to be casual. I have one friend who doesn't really watch week to week. He'll come over to watch the premium live events because we'll barbecue and kind of hang out beforehand and whatever. And I gotta say, I love seeing and hearing their reaction to what we're watching, whether it's AEW or WWE. It's way more honest even than what I give because I'm a fan, so I'm gonna watch probably regardless to an extent. These guys are not. If WWE slips, they're out. If AW, if I'm not pushing them to watch a pay per view with me, they're not watching. If we're not hanging out in the pool or barbecuing that day, they're not going to watch for the most part. So it's interesting to see their reaction to wrestling, and it's not surprising. They like the WWE right now. They're not feeling AEW right now. They're complaining about all the things you would stereotype, and there's almost no stars in wrestling other than CM Punk right now because The Rock's not there, Roman Reigns isn't there, and let's be honest, Roman Reigns not a transformational star. People used to watch wrestling because of Punk. There's nobody really else in the business right now, current, who you could say that about because I don't count The Rock. He's not really there full time. So it's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to watch. I think SummerSlam will be interesting, and I'm going to do some more content on WWE specifically and SummerSlam coming up next week, August the 3rd. That should be a lot of fun. They have a lot of great things going on right now in WWE. I know some people are complaining about Cody and this Cody versus Solo. Let me tell you something. You want to build new stars, this is part of the process. The Rock wasn't The Rock when you first saw him. I'm not saying Solo's going to be that good. With Solo Sokoa, he gives me Mang vibes. He gives me Barbarian vibes. He's very solid. He's a guy who I think you're going to be able to count on to be just a solid worker in the ring. Somebody who's physical and interesting to watch. His character's good enough. And I don't have a problem with him main eventing with Cody Rhodes. I think, frankly, this is what you got to do to get this guy over the top or to build him up. And I think that's fine. Why not? WWE has quietly, and credit to Triple H, they've quietly turned over half their roster. If you look at it, half of the guys on SmackDown and Raw are NXT guys from a year or two ago. So they're starting to really reap the benefits of that machine. Is AEW reaping the benefits of that machine in their side? That's a question you can think about, and maybe I'll answer that next time. But for now, we're going to keep having fun like we always do here in the Corner Arcade. All right, thanks, everybody.